Hey there, welcome to Catching Up with Kieran over coffee, a episode of SharkCast Pod, if you will, on a bright and early Monday morning. My name's Sam Shinazzi, an OG from 2015. This is SharkCast Pod. We're brought to you by Dyson Logistics, the Royal Motor Yacht Club, Import Hacking, and Jason Hawes at Cripps and Cripps Real Estate. And if you see me going cross-eyed looking at my microphone, guys, sometimes I'm just checking up on something. Don't freak out. We have a special guest, Kieran. Do we already?
Yes, I am. My daughter just decided to gate crash this.
Welcome.
Yeah, she's our youngest host that I've ever seen on the show. So congratulations to Olivia.
Yes. Hello, Olivia. Good morning. Kieran, catching up with you over a coffee, which is lovely. And you and I had the pleasure of watching a pretty good game down at Shark Park on, when was it? Friday evening, early 6 o'clock.
Friday,
and we had a lot of fun. We hit the Hairy Man a little bit early with our friend Craig and Cleve, and we saw some regulars down there, which was awesome. And the Sharkies winning 25 points to 6, and we're going to get to that real soon. I want to say thanks to everyone who's been watching and listening. We've got a few people on the YouTube now, which is great. So keep subscribing, and we'll throw things up here whenever we can. A bit of feedback during the week, Kieran, about Wi-Fi and phones in planes, which became a bit of a hot topic for us.
Yeah. So shout out to Scott, who commented on YouTube, and he kind of explained us why the Wi-Fi situation was in planes. So that got me thinking. And you know me, Sam, I'm always overthinking things, and I'm always in my own head. And I started thinking about all the different rules around phones that we used to have. And I wanted to ask this to the listeners and to you. What happened to not being able to use your phone while you're putting petrol in the car? Because now they've taken away that sign. Because I went to the Caltex next to Shark Park, and that sign is no longer there. The only sign that says is "Do not smoke." Now I look around and I see people using their phones all the time. But as a kid, I was always told if you used your phone at the petrol station, you would blow up. Is that not the case anymore?
I'm glad you come to me for this question, because I do have a lot of information about science and health and well-being. First of all, love how you named and shamed Caltex down at Woolaware. So get in touch if you want to sponsor us. I do not go anywhere near my phone when I'm filling up my car. That is a proper fact, hand on heart on sleeve. I do not do it, because I think I'm going to blow up, or something bad will happen.
Yeah.
And I mean, I still see the ones, and it reminds me of my dearly beloved late grandfather, who used to have a sign in the backyard or something. It was the no smoking, no, what was it? No smoking, no something around filling up your tank. It was like this old sign. I should know it. I don't know it. So the whole thing about smoking, and not that I smoke, but smoking and phones and doing anything that you shouldn't, just fill your car up. That's what you're there to do. I'm not doing anything else.
Well, I see people doing
You
it
see
now all
people
the
do
time.
it,
Yeah, and I get scared
right?
because I think that the whole petrol station is going to blow up, and then I start thinking about what a terrible that would be to die, and then I
Yeah.
start thinking about what other ways to die would be terrible, and I start thinking about getting buried alive, eaten by a
Ooh.
shark,
Ooh.
getting burnt. This is just what goes on in my head. So
I'm
thank
gonna,
you, Scott,
I'm,
for
I'm
answering
gonna,
those questions.
I'm gonna go eaten by a shark out of all those, as
You
the
think that would
best.
be the best way to go?
Out of those ones, yeah.
I think being buried alive would probably be the worst.
Yeah, it does hark back to some pay-per-views that we've seen.
But I think if the shark got you and you went straight away, that wouldn't be too bad. But that
Kieran,
video that
it's
went
Monday
around.
morning, and I got enough going on in my life. I don't need you bringing me down. We're coming third, I think. We're 2-2. We're on our way to the finals, especially if you listen to our fans. And if this is how you're going to be every Monday morning, it's going to quickly become catching up with Jardian over Java or something. All right. There's your warning.
That's a way better name.
I'm glad you raised it. I don't know if I see people do it, but maybe I'm not looking for it. I'm there for my business, in and out.
Well, now that I've said it, next time you fill up your car, you'll have a look and you'll notice
Oh,
it.
I'll be looking for sure. Kieran, we had a great time down at the football, and the Sharks have started, as I said, 2-0 on the back of a really strong defensive gameplay. Tell me about your initial thoughts about the game on Friday.
My first initial thoughts were the Bulldogs were like an under 12s team. They were just give it to Kickout and give it to Crichton. And I think having those two guys together just kind of it just really jams in what they do. But the one thing that really impressed me was Nico Hines' defense on kick out because they loaded up kick out a ridiculous amount of times on Nico. And if you go back and watch the replay, the amount of times you see Nico holding on and he just like he's around an ankle, he's around a leg, like he just didn't give up and he was in kick out's face all game. And kick out got through a few times, but Nico was holding on to him every single time and allowed other players to get there as well. So for me, that was a real highlight. And also Will Kennedy as well in defense. He was absolutely everywhere. And that's 2 weeks in a row now where he's just been like this bouncy ball that is just everywhere in defense and filling up all the gaps. So that were the two standouts for me.
So looking at the stats, Nico actually made kind of the fourth most tackles for the Sharks, and he made 20 and he missed a few, which were nothing of note from memory. So they definitely targeted him, especially Trindle, and he made 9. And when you got Kickow on that side, of course, that'll be where you go anyway, no matter who's defending. But we have seen, it's only 2 games, but we've seen a really resolute new style of play from Nico, and it's an aggressive style. I really like it. I mentioned it last week on the shows. I think he's come to town with a bit more of a game face, and it's being seen in his defense, and off that, we're winning games through attack as well. So whatever he's done in the off season, it's worked. I mean, he was on one of the Fox shows last night, and he was talking about how they had a good off season. He said everyone says that, but we actually did have a good off season. Worked on a lot of things, had a lot to work on, got through a lot. And again, it's only 2 games, but if you look at them, down 12-0 against the Warriors, defense got them back into the game 100%. And against the Bulldogs, down a man for 10 minutes, just really strong defensive play. Even though the Bulldogs didn't throw much at us, of course, we still had to just hang on. Went to the shed 6-all, came out with a really good attitude, won the game. But again, defense is what's going to win you a title. And so far, so good, right? Like, I mean, you can see the difference, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that Nico said last night was they did a lot of stuff on mental resilience and mindsets and things like that. And I think you've seen that in the defensive efforts. And whilst the Dogs didn't throw a lot attack wise at the Sharks, the Dogs were super physical and the Dogs were super niggly and they were trying to get under the Sharks' skin. And that was a really stop start type of thing with like lots of pushing and shoving. And nothing phased them. And I was kind of getting a little bit annoyed because the scores were close, you know, around the 60-minute mark. I think it was still 6-all. And you were like, mate, just they'll be fine. They'll get to this next stage. And that's exactly what happened. They kind of took the Dogs to that deep water. And then that last 20 minutes, they just kicked away. And if you look at the week before when the Dogs played Parramatta had like 80-90% of the ball in that first half. And the score lines are pretty much identical, right? So
Yeah.
the Bulldogs are still putting in a lot of effort. It's early in the season for them. But the Sharks, that wasn't an easy game for them. And I think that was a good preparation for this next week against the Tigers at Leichhardt, because, again, that's another game where they're going to be expected to win. It's going to be a packed house out there. And I think they kind of went through it a little bit last week, and now they'll be able to go into Tiger Town kind of a little bit more switched on because they know it won't be easy.
I mean, when I said to you they're going to be okay, it was based on the fact that they were playing decent. Like, they weren't dropping too much ball. They were getting through their sets. They were kicking well. Just the tries weren't coming. So I knew they would, especially against a team like the Bulldogs, who aren't really where you need to be at the moment for an NRL team. They brought in a lot of niggle. It was kind of their only thing. That and the big bombs, it's all they had. And for their sake, I hope it improves. But I'm glad we got the hit out that we did. And boy, you're right about Will Kennedy too. He's just hit the ground running. And again, based off really good kick defense and defense in general. And then we're seeing some great kick returns, just full of gusto and a little bit of class in there now. It's not just sort of running directly straight back the line. We saw David Peachy in the house, which was always just a joy to see him around. He was there with the big crew, and he must have got a kick out of seeing a couple of those Will Kennedy returns. Like, just, we both said it. A few people turned around and said to us, they were like, "That was Peachy like." It's like, absolutely, it was Peachy like.
That glide that he had, where it was like a 30, 40-meter run, and it was just like the balance that he had. It just brought back so many memories. And like, even when we saw David Peachy on the hill, like, I see a lot of Sharks players around the Shire and that, but when you see David Peachy, it's like,
Yeah.
David Peachy, like, it's exciting when you see him. Like, I get a little bit starstruck when I see him. So that was awesome to see him at Shark Park. But the Sharkies should have had him up in some sort of suite.
Yeah, I get the vibe. It's not really his thing. I may be wrong, but I definitely agree with you. I know afterwards I hung about a bit after the majority of people left, and he was talking to some people in the know. Like, they kind of, I think, realized that he was around. So he's pretty chill, as everyone knows. He was having a great time, and it's going to be great to watch Will Kennedy keep going. Like, he's just, I think he's been close to man of the match in both, and we need it. We said we need more from our spine. We're getting it. Blake Brayley was really strong, probably better than last week, running a lot more. And again, there's an aggression to his game we haven't really seen. We've seen it in little bits when he gets a bit fired up or whatever, but we've seen 2 games in a row now from Blake where he's really just making the game his own. He's really also, if he's not running, he's engaging the line and at least trying to get us a penalty, if not getting us penalties. Great in defense. So I think if he just keeps improving like that week in, week out, with Trindle solid, Nico going really well, it's a good spine all of a sudden, like a really good spine.
Yeah, and I think he really took that battle with Marnie personal, because any time there was a break in play, you just saw Braley was like finding him out, and he was in his face and just being a little bit more aggressive than we've kind of seen in the past. Because that's one thing a lot of people have always said: if you could put Michael Ennis's mentality in Blake Braley, could you just imagine what that player would be? So,
Yeah,
he's, I don't know how many first grade games he's had now, but he's been there for 4 years or so. So he's probably up around that 100 game mark. So maybe he's feeling confident now. And that was the other thing too, that when I was watching the game, I was just thinking about it, because the Dogs have so much chopping and changing. And you look at our team, and so many of those guys have played 4, 5, 6 years together in first grade. And then you go back to the 20s team that they were all in as well. Like,
yeah.
Katoa and Jesse Ramian have been defending next to each other for 8 years or so, right? Like, those combinations are so vital, and compare that with what the Dogs are doing. Like, the Dogs are just disjointed. There's probably, like, I think there's no one there from 2, 3 years ago. It's pretty crazy when you think what the club's actually built there with guys like Blake and Katoa and Jesse.
So Blake's played 112 games. He's crept up all of a sudden.
And they've
You're
all pretty much
100% right about that. It's what Fitzgibbon said to us on the pod, and he's telling everyone that, listen, these guys need time, and that time is kind of arriving. Let's not go off too early, but they're all kind of arriving at the same spot. And man, Jesse Ramian, he was everywhere on Friday night. He was doing hit ups, he was tackling, he was jumping on the ball. He's had a super impressive. I mean, most of the guys have, but he's had a really impressive start to the year.
Yeah, and the one thing I noticed was that he seems to be the guy that we've designated to chase those bombs, right? And
Yeah.
Taft's had some issues under the high ball, and Jesse was on the other side of the field chasing those kicks, like putting pressure on Taft. So the other thing about Jesse, that every time I watch him, I get reminded of how aggressive he is, and it's really weird because when you see him out and about, he's always so nice and polite, and then you put him on the field, and he is just a bulldozer running into people, just full contact. He's so physical. And then you look at Siffer as well. And I don't know if Siffer's injured or not, but he's a tank out there. And, his body must have hurt so badly the next day, because there were times where he could barely walk.
Yeah, I think something's going on with the ankle or the foot. He got through the game. Hopefully he plays this week. Not suggesting he won't. But you're right. These guys, like, both the centers are like, I mean, Siffer's a bit more quiet than Jesse off the field, but they're both just kind of these really quietly spoken, family orientated people, they cross the line. And it's just like, I don't want any part of you. Ronaldo ran for over 200 meters, dude. 200 meters.
That's insane. And the one thing I loved, and I remember pointing it out to you, was when Ronaldo did that big palm on the Bulldogs player, and you could just see Siffer was just laughing his head off, and Siffer was having the time of his life watching that. But Ronnie, mate, if you back one Sharks try scorer, you have to back the wingers. You can't back one of them. You got to back both of them. And
Also
unfortunately,
throwing Teague Wilton as well.
So that's what I normally do. Is I normally put in Teague, but I put in Kennedy because I thought he was due, and they came back and bit me. But how good was Teague? Watching the replay,
you know what? I'm
wow.
glad I brought up my favorite anytime try scorer, because he is running onto the ball harder than anyone, and it's working. And absolutely, he has started the season so strong, especially a guy who missed a lot of it last year through injury. He's super young, and I really am excited by his future. And they used him last week exactly how I wanted, just running into holes, but not in the Britain Nicker way, and just the straight, hard, you're not going to stop me kind of way. We saw him set up a try for Trindle. We saw another few chances that didn't come to points, but great in defense as well. And I mean, there is some disruption this week, which we're going to talk about, but the first 2 weeks have just been, you wouldn't have wanted more. Like, you don't really care about bigger wins. You don't care about much. You want to be injury free, and you want to be winning. And the way they're defending is so good, and just the attitude is really good. Like Teague Wilton, watch him run. It's just, that's the attitude you've got. And look, we're not going to go through player by player on this show. We'll do it throughout the week, but we do need to mention the debut for the Sharks, at least, of Tuku Hautapua, Big Tukes. He was only on the field for 11 minutes, but he ran for 50 meters, and he busted a bunch of tackles and made some tackles without missing them, and was rock solid in a very short stint, already a crowd favorite, and the exact prototype of what you want coming off your bench during the middle of a game.
The size of him and Hazelton is just freakish, because when I saw him up close, I could not believe how big he was. And usually when a guy is that big, you expect him not to be as mobile as he is. And
He's mobile, yeah.
He was everywhere. And those, I think, 50 meters, 4 tackle busts in that stint. Yeah, it's like he shot him out of a cannon coming off the bench. And again, it's just the different body shapes that the Sharks have. We're starting to get that, because a few years ago, everyone was the same sort of size. They were that sort of nuggety, sort of Jack Williams, super strong type. But now they're getting the Hazeltons in there. Wilton's coming into his own. Like, they're getting all these different bodies. And then you add a Fanua Blake in next year. And all these guys are on contract too, besides Jack Williams. So
without being smart, our lock is one of the smaller forwards in the game. Yeah. And he had a terrific game. He ran for 130 meters over 50 minutes. And he was finding those little holes. He was making sort of 8, 10, 12 meters a go and getting the quick play the ball in the middle of the field. And it's what gets him going. Like, the size thing has really become a positive. As you said, for a while, we were just all the same. But now you got your small, then Dale Finucane's a little bit bigger, and you got your Jack Williams, you got Tall Tom, you got Tukes, Toby Rudolph somewhere in the middle. Oregon's not huge, but he's a tough body. But they're all different sizes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I just think that once you add in a Hamlin-Uele as well, you're just getting that different versatility. And, Royce Hunt, I don't know if he's going to be back this week or whatever, but again, he's a completely different body shape too. So they're really starting to get that sort of diversity in size, which is kind of exciting, because you can see it's making a real difference when they're going forward and making those meters now, compared to a few years ago where they were just kind of, we always felt like if you lost a game, we would say the same thing. The Sharks got dominated in the middle. Right. Whereas now we're starting to get a bit of different bodies, and we're starting to win those meter gains and make more meters than the opposition.
Tell me, if you're coaching the team this week, are you leaving the middles the same, or are you bringing back Royce? What are you doing?
I think if Royce is fit, you bring him back. But I would love to see Tukes get another game because that was so impressive. But I think knowing Fitz from watching him over the last couple of years, he will stick with the guys that have kind of brought him to the dance. But I think Hamanueli's back as well. There's a chance for round 3, I read.
Is that right?
Or maybe he's round 4. But there's a real logjam there of middles. But then, we're going to talk about later, but maybe you push a Jack Williams out and that creates the room to accommodate someone like that.
Well, let's get to it now. My favorite player, although I might have gone off too early about that, but my favorite player, Britton Nickera, is going to be missing for 2 weeks. Many feel that this is a good thing that he only got 2 weeks and not longer. Other people think that the game has changed forever. But however you see it, the fact is he's going to be missing for 2 weeks. One of our best players. It really disrupts that right edge. And I'm wondering, Kieran, what would you do if you were naming the team this week?
I don't think you can do open heart surgery and take Sifa and move him across to the second row spot and bring in Iro. I think that's just messing up too much there because when you look at what they're doing on that side, defensively especially, they've been rock solid. So I don't really like the idea of moving, and there's too many moving parts for me on that one. I think Jack could probably do the job on the edge, and I think that's probably the least disruption, unless you maybe put a McInnes there. We've seen Cam defend out there in the past, but I think in the path of least disruption, I would probably keep the same 17, bring in Royce for Nickera, and probably push Jack out. But then your bench would be Finucane, Tukes, Hazelton, and who else?
Hunt.
Yeah, so that bench is probably too big. So maybe you have to have like a Eero on the bench to try and balance that out. But we seem to be one back rower short. What would you do?
Well, I'm gonna hit pause on Billy Burns just now because I need to see more out of him. His 2 Jets games, yeah, he's been scoring tries and everything, but he hasn't been lights out. And he's played like regular first grade for the last few years, so I won't be shocked if that's what they do. But for some reason, I know he's had the off season and everything, but for some reason, I feel like it's too soon. Whether that's crazy or not, I feel like it's too soon just to bring a new guy in inverted commas into the system to play at Leichhardt. Tigers looking desperate for a win, so I don't mind the Jack Williams thing, but he's going to have to be pretty mobile.
Yeah,
for a large portion of the game. Cam McInnes could work. I prefer him defending in the middle, though. Other than that, I think we're kind of stuck. I wouldn't be moving Talakai like you say. The only thing that might get Iro a go is that he might go to the bench if Talakai's ankle's a bit 50-50. He might become the 17th guy just as that backup. Or even if it all goes pear-shaped, if you do play Billy Burns, I'm not saying you should, but if you did, or if you play Jack Williams and it's not working, I'm assuming Talakai can play both sides. I can't confirm that. I know he's more of a lefty than a righty, but if you shift him across, or even if Teague shifts across, whatever, then Iro can come on as well at center. If there's an issue with the second row, Sifa goes in second row. It's getting a little bit open heart surgery, as you said, though. So maybe I would just do the Williams thing and just tell him to practice his lateral defense, gets Jesse to kind of help him out there as well, and go from there. But it's a pickle, man. It's not good. I'm thankful that it's against a team that we should beat, West Tigers, then come home to Canberra, who are decent but perfectly beatable. So it's not the worst time of the year to do it, or against the worst teams. So we'll see what happens there. But it was a major bummer to see that happen. I've got no idea whether it's a right or wrong decision. The 2 weeks, the sin bin, I've got no idea. I kind of like stay away from that stuff just because it looked bad, but
Mm.
you see worse people get away with worse stuff, and I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of feedback, obviously, from fans who are just up in arms. I think that's personally a bit dramatic, but yeah, 2 weeks. I mean, I was talking to Macca up in the upper ET, and he said he expected 4 weeks, didn't get that, which is great. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Tuesday, 4 o'clock, they'll name the team. They won't have the final run out and team until Saturday, 6:30 p.m. But we'll see what happens there. Who else caught your eye? Anyone else catch your eye from Friday night, Kieran?
Well, again, the whole back five, every time I watch them
Oh,
play, I get super impressed by
yeah,
just the amount of work that they get through it and bringing us, back out of trouble. Um, Wilton's hands were just ridiculous. The amount of times where he got balls that were kind of behind him or whatever, like up his shoulder, and was able to catch those, I thought were just tremendous. But yeah, the real standout to me was Nico's defense, because I just couldn't get over it because they just kept going back to it. And Burton, Kickout, and Crichton were that sort of like that's their three guys, and they all play next to each other. So
yeah,
that was the real thing for me. And I guess going into next week, if you're not going to have Nakora next to Nico,
yeah.
you really have to think that through, because I think they put Josh Papali'i, what's his name? The Tigers back rower?
The other fella, not Josh, but the other fella. Yep.
Yeah. So I think that's the guy that will be on him. So there's a lot to think about there. But yeah, I just can't stop thinking about who they're going to put in the second row. But
Let's give a final shout out to co-captain Dale Finucane. He ended up playing 42 minutes, and he
wow.
ran for 120 meters, made 25 tackles, missed 2. So everyone's saying that his use by date has come is not particularly correct. Now, whether he's in your top 17 or not, different story. It's up to the individual to make that call. But we heard from the coach in the press conference saying that Dale basically hasn't trained, and he crossed the white line, 250 games, and he got through it all, and he was pretty good. Like he wasn't amazing, but that's a job. 42 minutes, 120 meters, 25 tackles, no glaring issues at all. So we're not putting a line through him, surely.
Well, and the thing that made me laugh was his very first tackle, he lost his head tape.
Yeah.
So that's just classic Dale. But you can see the guys when he goes on the field, they kind of look over and they see him. And I think he's that real safety blanket for a lot of them too, because he is that guy. He's been there, he's done that, and he's that physical dude at training and around the place. And so if you're a Toby Rudolph or a Kafusi and you're looking over there and you're seeing this guy just busted and going that hard, and to not train all week and get out the field and just be that lunatic that he is, it's super impressive. But you do have to wonder, like, how much more can that body hold up? Because he's been doing that for 10 plus years, 250 games. Like, he's one of the most physical guys I think I've actually watched, because everything just looks like it hurts. And even the way
Yeah.
he moves looks like it hurts.
I wonder if later in the year they'll rest him. If we're playing someone he doesn't need to play, or if he's got a niggling injury, because if everyone's fit, we have the depth to cover him now. You wouldn't do it necessarily in a blockbuster match or whatever, but if we're playing a team we should beat somewhere, maybe you do give him a week off every now and then.
Well, and it also gives more minutes to the guys like McInnes and Jack Williams, that have been playing so well. Like, part of the reason why I would be hesitant to put Jack in the second row is that impact that he's having off the bench, because it's noticeable every time he comes on, and the amount of work that he gets through and the power there. So, if you can rest a guy like Dale, I think you need him if you get to do anything in the finals. So yeah, I think it's a good idea if that opportunity pops up. But again, if that opportunity is there, that means the Sharks are winning and things are going cruisy. So fingers crossed.
Is there a chance we see something kooky like a middle that's not Jack playing on that edge, and they just sub them throughout the game? Like we see Toby hanging out on the left edge a little bit.
I
Like, is
think
there a chance he just fills the numbers up and kind of, I don't know, plays a more defensive style game? I don't know. Like, I'm just throwing things out there, but
I think there was a game where Toby played in the second row. I want to say against Brisbane a few years ago when he first came into first grade. But I just think he's an out and out middle. I just don't think you can
Yeah, I
really do it. I think
agree.
the only one that has that versatility is probably Jack. But even then, Jack's
Yeah.
probably not that versatile in that sense, where his best football is definitely in the middle.
Maybe they're going to throw Billy in. I mean, they bought him for a reason, and
Yeah.
and the reason was as a backup. So, I mean, it's what do you want? Do you want a guy who's played NRL at that position, or do you want to tinker a little bit and hope that it works? It's a on the surface, it's a tough one for the coach. Maybe he's already made up his mind. I'm not sure, but it's a tough one because of who it is that he's replacing.
Yeah.
And if you think about our 2 second rowers, we said at the start of the year they've got the job. Teague's got the job, and Britain's got the job. So you're not really going to have superstar guys in the wings waiting to take over. There's no need.
Yeah.
So I kind of understand the lack of depth there. And I understand why Billy Burns was brought in. He's got, I don't know, a bunch of games. So we will see what happens there. It is fascinating to watch. Everyone's got their theories out there, which is awesome. We will see what happens moving forward. Kieran, we had a good time on Friday night, Shark Park. A few things coming to us in the mail that we'll get to throughout the week about queuing of things, people queuing.
I definitely
and
experienced
also,
that.
Yeah, there were some queues, and there's a bunch of people saying that they weren't allowed to bring in their food from home, and we'll see what happens with that. But overall, really good to be home. Full house. You definitely felt that when you walked around the outer areas, and just good to be back.
It was hilarious watching some of the tradies in the new leagues club, trying to watch the game there and watching security kick them out. But I think when we go back to Shark Park, the first game of every season, it seems to be this issue with queues. And
Yeah.
I don't understand it, but it'll probably be fixed by the time we get back there against the Raiders in 2 weeks, because that's just how it kind of rolls for some reason. The most peculiar thing to me was that the food situation, they ran out of options, and that was just Pluto Pups and chicken nuggets.
Yes.
So that just to me was quite strange. Of all the foods to have left, maybe that's just because they weren't popular. I don't know.
Well, I can tell you in the upper ET in the second half, they were popular, and I thank you for the nuggets. I thank you for the chips. I thank you for taking the Pluto Pup.
The Pluto Pup wasn't that bad. It was
sure.
the first one I've had in a long time. It reminded me of the Easter show, and then my wife says she wants to take our eldest to the Easter show. So pray for me if that actually happens, because I think that would be a living hell.
Yeah, it would be. But, I probably need to do the same thing with my little guy. So maybe we can Uber in together.
Sorted.
West Tigers this week here in at Leichhardt. I'm not worried about it, but it's one of those games where the home team gains a backbone for at least opening 20, 25, 30. And it's up for us to do what we've done in the past 2 weeks. Hang in there and then get on with the job in the second half. I think that's how it's going to go down. I don't necessarily see us smashing them. I think that the potential's there to do it, but we'll all be happy if we just win and win with a good performance, get out of there with the 2 points. It's all about the 2 points now and just staying injury free. Great start to the season. We've only been 3-0 a handful of times, and we'll get the official stats to you throughout the week. But each time we've been 3-0, there's been a lot of cases of us going to the prelim or the grand final. Now, that's just a stat. Times have changed, longer season, better teams. But they're doing everything they can now to be there at the end of the year. And it's something we don't really do. Usually we fight hard for it in the middle and at the end. But now it's like really good start. And I don't care what anyone says. The draw is really favorable to us. And I'm not going to call it easy. No game's easy. But if you don't think it's a favorable draw, you're kidding yourself. It's in Sydney. So after New Zealand, in Sydney for a bunch of games. And against teams that you should beat. Even Canberra started well, but if we complete well against Canberra, we'll beat them. So it's a fun time. And then, once we hit the better teams after that period,
Yeah.
we lift. And they're doing everything they can to lift, because we know in the past 2 seasons we've come into the finals a bit staggered, and then it's like we're going to lift now, and it's hard to turn that switch on. But at the moment, going up and up and up, we'll play like, I don't know, Brisbane, Penrith, whoever, boom, time to go. So I really like this year so far, Kieran. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, once we get to round 10, we have the Storm in Melbourne. Then we have the Roosters Magic Round. Then we have the Panthers at home. Then we have the Eels at Para. Then we have the Broncos in Brisbane again. So there's a 4-week period there from round 10 that is really going to sort of test the team in that middle part of the season. And just off the top of my head, I'm assuming that's probably when some Origin games will probably start kicking off. As well.
Yeah, it's usually like round 13 or so. Yeah.
Yeah, so that 4-week period is going to be quite interesting. So again, if they can keep stacking some wins up now, it's going to put them in a great position. But yeah, Saturday night's not going to be easy against the Tigers at Leichhardt.
No.
Because the Tigers are going to get hammered all week in the media.
Yes.
Benji's going to cop it. Like, I mean, NRL 360 tonight, you can just know it's going to be a 20-minute bash about Benji and not coaching 24/7. So the Tigers will be super fired up.
There's more headlines than that. Did you see his pre-game interview?
No, I missed it.
There's no real game plan.
I saw that when he was talking about Aiden Caesar, sorry.
Play what you see.
He said,
it's like, Benji, it's not 05, brother.
He said, we didn't have a plan for Caesar, so we just threw him on and just try and control the game when we're down by 12. That's a tough job. And I'm just thinking, you got to lie a little bit in life. You can't just be that honest all the time. And that's probably what's going to bite him in the backside.
We all like him. Even when he's killing us in 2005, we still, you can't hate Benji, but yeah, he's got to treat those interviews a bit more, not seriously, but a bit more. He's giving away too much.
It's the opposite of Fitzy, right? I mean, Fitzy is so stoic, and Fitzy gives nothing away. And you can see them ask the questions and try and get the information out of Fitz, but Fitz will even say sometimes, you know what, I'm just going to hold that close to my chest and just cuts it off. And I think that's the way you've got to be, right? But
you're right. They are going to cop it from all circles, and it wasn't a great performance for your first game, and the new brigade and new coach. It wasn't great signs, but it doesn't mean they can't get it together in a week and at least they'll at least turn up. I would think at Leichhardt. They'll bring out the old boys. It'll be a packed house. It'll be sold out. Yeah. And I think we'll have a good representation there, but it'll still obviously be majority Tigers fans. And yeah, the Sharks have to turn up, and I know they will. Like this year's a different year. Like they have a new resilience to them. Nico was talking about how he respected the Dogs last night, which I found. Well, I'm sure every word was honest, but you and I watched the same game that Nico watched. We didn't play in it, but we walked away going, they're not very good. Whereas he was like, I think he said they were awesome. So
yeah, I think he was probably talking about how physical they were, because they were quite physical and niggly. Sure. But I thought it was interesting that he sort of mentioned that there's a rivalry building between the two teams, because we do seem to play them quite often, and a lot of those guys do live down here. And I think Gus is really trying to fish in our pond when it comes to juniors, and you can tell because they don't have a great junior system that the amount of guys that played in our lower grades that are filtering through to the Dogs. I could see that being a real rivalry building up over the next few years, because they've still got a lot of work to do, but they're going to keep taking some of our juniors and offering them these opportunities. So we've got to watch out for them and just keep giving it to them while we can, because there's so many Dogs fans in the Shire too. It's insane. I think because they had that great run in the mid-2000s, right? And there's a lot of younger people then, and they just go for the winner and Sonny Bill and that. But there's so many Dogs fans around here. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, there was a time when we couldn't beat them, and thankfully that's not now. But yeah, it was a fun atmosphere. Like there were some Dogs fans around in the house on Friday, and we have to mention, of course, post game we did an interview, I guess a review with Gary Dover. Then we were joined by our new friend, well, not new friend, our friend Dylan Wright from Australian Idol and his wife Georgia. Monday morning, early Monday morning, we're recording this, so we don't know the results of Dylan's performance last night, but he did a classic BG song and did a really good job, and people seem to like it. So if you're watching this today and you've got a spare text on you, just send it to the Australian Idol number and type Dylan in there, and you'll find it online. And he's a terrific fellow, as you would have heard. But we had a lot of fun with him post-game. The coach made a brief appearance, and it was all systems go at Shark Park post-game. We were very fortunate to be in that position, and we were just grabbing people when we could. And thankfully, Dylan and his wife were up for a good chat. And definitely one of the more fun episodes we've ever done. So if you haven't heard that, go take a listen. The audio's a little scratchy here or there because I'm just basically passing the microphone around, but definitely perfectly audible in a sense. And did you enjoy it, Dylan? We tried to make it a lot of fun. No, you're not Dylan. All I'm thinking about is Dylan. You're Kieran.
He's turned
Give
me
us a
into
song,
a fan.
Kieran.
I definitely can't sing, but he was so likable. He and his wife. I listened to the episode, and you like seeing good things happen to good people, and he just seems like someone who is having the time of his life at the moment. And you see the photos of him and Finucane in the sheds, and the smile on his face is so authentic and genuine that he's one of us. I know there's banners on the bridge as you come into the Shire now saying vote for him. So my gym is even posting up things saying everyone vote for him. The support that he's getting from everyone around here is pretty cool. So fingers crossed he can win it all, because that would be just amazing for him. And I would love to see that happen for him.
Yeah, and he's the sort of guy, and the reason we sort of go on and about it on the show is because we know him and everything, but he's the sort of fan that's genuine. He's not someone that's using it to propel himself somewhere else. Like I'm not suggesting you had to go there. I'm not suggesting that he doesn't know what he's doing when he's doing an interview in front of the whole stadium, or if he comes on our show and says this is the text number, vote for. Like, he knows what he's doing, but it all comes from a place of love, and it's genuine. And he's a I'd say a hardcore fan. And the first time we had him on the show, I think he sort of undersold it a little bit, but he's a proper hardcore fan, and he goes to the games and has a rich history of supporting the club. And that's why we are banging on about him on the show. If he was just one of the guys on the show that I loved, I wouldn't really mention it at all. I wouldn't have thought at all. So anyone who's got a beef with that, you can take that up with me some other time, and make sure you bring the beef, because I like beef. And when I'm talking about beef, I'm not talking about fighting. I'm talking about beef. Kieran, thanks for joining me on the second episode of Catching Up with Coffee with Kieran about Cronulla, something like that. A lot of C's and K's.
Mate, I'm still upset about Jards as Java with Jards. That's such a better name.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But
you know what? He didn't get the gig. You got the gig.
Take that, Jards.
Maybe if you can't do it one time, we can do that. But I think catching up with coffee with Kieran, catching up with Kieran over coffee about Cronulla. The about's throwing me a little bit.
We need to go with another word in there. But again, if anyone sees me out and about, I'm more than willing to have a coffee with anybody. So we don't get to Mr. Paisley's very often because I've got a new job, and my wife's training at the gym in the mornings now. So this is fun. This is good to catch up, man.
It is good to catch up. And we will speak to you another time, if not same time next week, if not before. But enjoy your week, Kieran. Enjoy your sleepless night tonight, wondering who is going to play in the second row for us. I think you might even still have some sleepless ones after it's named, actually. I think could be a TBC on that position.
Well, that's just classic Fitz. I don't think we'll know until an hour before the game, and it could be something completely out of left field. Like he could name Iro there and just completely throw us, which would be fun, and that would just cause absolute chaos and a meltdown online. So bringing that on, Fitz.
Iro to second row, toughen him up a little bit. I like it.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen. And again, wrong sides.
Yeah, the side thing. These guys need to start playing like the old days where you just play it anywhere. I can play there. I can play left wing. I can play right wing.
Did you see Herbie Farnsworth last night when he was interviewed? He's just like, yeah, I don't really care. I prefer this side, but I can play that side. So wherever I get picked, I'll just play there. But I think most of them are like that, to be fair.
Yeah. All right. Kieran, thanks for your time, my friend. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks everyone for being in touch. We'll have some more episodes throughout the week when we can. This is SharkCast Pod. You can follow us on all the socials, including the YouTubes, and of course, subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We'll be back another time. This is SharkCast Pod, catching up with coffee. I'm not catching up with coffee. I'm catching up with Kieran over coffee about Cronulla. We'll work on it. It's a work in
We'll get
progress.
there.
It's the
There's a
place
long
to be.
season.
The place to be is where it is. The
This
place
is
to be.
definitely the place to be.
All right. Remember, Kieran, wrestling is real. People are fake.
Absolutely.
Up, up.
Up, up.
See you, my friend.